because this is the test.
Right.
You know, this is where we're going to find out, you know, whether or not this deck is capable of competing against the big boys. And we know the deck's good. The deck had the highest game win percentage in the entire tournament. But we don't know if the deck can beat Caw-Blade. And here Brian in the zone.
I'm really excited to see how this one plays out. Okay, so Josh Silvestri running 2 Baneslayer Angels and 2 Tumble Magnets. And a Mortar Pod. Wow, what does he do to get rid of all of the other stuff to make this happen?
Well, he only has 6 counterspells, 2 Spell Pierce and 4 Mana Leak. And he only has 2 Day of Judgments, where most people have more. He's also, I believe he's playing 26 lands, as opposed to 27, which is in a lot of decks. Now this deck, besides that, looks pretty basic. The Baneslayer Angels are really good here, but Josh's deck, the one thing that it doesn't do as well as other blue-white Caw-Blade decks is it can't tech edge aggressively. He has 5 drops as opposed to the normal count of 3. That's the big change I see here. The 2 Tumble Magnets seem incredible to me. They're especially good in the Caw-Blade mirrors. But you know, the one thing that impresses me about Brian's deck is that he is 100% capable of beating Swords. His Tumble Magnets are very good there. Now, what we're going to want to see from Brian, if we want Brian to win, is we're going to want to see an early Crusader followed by Counter Magic or Jaces. What Josh is going to want to see is is going to want he can use Mortar Pod to deal with those Crusaders, and just in general, Josh just wants to curve out the normal way a Caw-Blade deck does.
I mean, one of the things I like about looking at Josh's list is that he has the Tumble Magnets that we've both been gushing about, and you definitely have been really enthusiastic, and I'm enthusiastic basically partly because of your own enthusiasm. But then the other part of it is that he has those Baneslayers that I think are really good for the mirror.
Yeah, and I mean, First Strike is just incredible in the mirror. That's one of the reasons why Stoneforge Mystic was, rather Student of Warfare was played for the mirror before Caw-Blade started to take on 3rd color. Now, we're getting into the game here. Brian leads off and passes turn to Josh. Josh has a Preordain of his own here.
Now, these players have both had an opportunity to look at each other's deck list at this point. So, the early Preordains, which I usually find in oftentimes, I like to hold off until turn 2 or turn 3, so I can sculpt based on what my opponent is. When you already know what your opponent is, casting it on turn 1 is much more acceptable.
Yeah, that's definitely true. This Necropede is going to poke in some early infect counters unless Josh plays one of the 8 2-drops in his deck here. And he doesn't. Brian may have tried to use the Necropede as an opportunity to get his opponent to tap some mana so that he could resolve Phyrexian Crusader.
Right.
Now, in this situation, though, I think Brian's just happy to play land and pass the turn back.
I mean, right now, just working away at somebody with poison for this deck, he doesn't need to actually do anything particularly aggressive when he can effectively threaten with a mana leak for any major play for Josh. Yep. You know?
And, you know, that extra Preordain, he's just sculpting his hand. He's going to sit here and let that Necropede do some work.
By the time the Necropede actually gets dealt with, it might have like 4 poison on Josh.
And the other thing is that, you know, Brian's deck has access to Proliferate, and it would not be unusual for this game to get very bogged down installed. Yeah. And a Contagion class can really just steal those games away.
And I know that Brian was saying earlier that in the way that this matchup ends up playing out is that a Contagion class often ends up being the real end of the game.
Yeah, and that makes sense. All right, Josh is going to pass. He's going to leave up the Mana Leak. Brian gets in for a second poison counter. Reaches long for it.
Yet another preordain. I believe that's his third preordain. He practically has a very incredible sculpture in front of him.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, you can count on Brian's hand being pretty tight.
Yeah.
Josh, on the other hand, I mean, Josh's hand, we don't really know what's in Josh's hand, but cards like Gideon can be very good against Brian, and Brian really has to leave open counter magic so he can fight those types of things.
And I mean, with only 4 mana leaks and a deprive,
It's tough to do
yeah.
Josh is going to attempt to play Stoneforge Mystic, and I believe he's probably going to find a Mortar Pod. And he does indeed find the Mortar Pod.
Mortar Pod is just such an interesting card, you know.
Yeah, it
I
seems
would not have
incredible.
expected seeing it in the top 8, but once it's here, you know, like seeing it play out in the earlier portions of the day seems pretty good.
Yeah, every time we saw it, it was very, very impressive. And we have Josh just passed again. Josh says, well, I'm just going to leave open my counter magic.
Yep.
And I can just drop this Mortar Pod into play with my Stoneforge Mystic. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Inquisition?
And that's pretty good here. Having that type of information is pretty powerful.
And we know that there's at least one target that is good enough that Josh tutored for it.
Yeah.
Mana leak with 3 mana open from Kibler, prompting the attempt for, hey, do you want to tap out and let me have the opportunity for Jace? Is that what you want to do?
And maybe Brian does.
I guess so. See what you got. Something off screen.
And it's a
Preordain.
Tumble Magnet, a Sword, a Mortar Pod, and a Preordain.
And apparently the cards we cannot see that are above the quarterfinals mark are land.
I only had $1 in my wallet, so I thought, but it was like $1 was rolled up because Brew 11, Brew was $1 on the ground. So I ripped up $1 bill, throws it on the ground, so I got rid of cash. So I just picked up $1, and then it was the last $1 in my pocket, and upstairs $1. So I have to find
Okay.
Now,
So what is he going to take here? I mean,
it's pretty tough. Like, it's really tough.
It's better that I don't know where to
I don't... Yeah, he's thinking, look at that. Oh, I'll take that. Sword? Yeah. Sword.
And, that's got to be the card to take.
I don't have a problem with that card going away. Now, he knows, because he's seen his opponent's deck list, that there's another sword yet in the library.
Yeah. That doesn't... It's not in his opponent's hand. It's just so strong.
Yes.
It's so tough to beat a sword. We're going to have to see what happens here. So, Brian puts on Inkmoth Nexus, which is surprisingly good here. Normally, it's not very good in this matchup. Squadron Hawk kind of puts the brakes on that.
But, as we saw earlier when we saw his hand, Josh doesn't have a Squadron Hawk in hand.
It's true.
Oh my god. Oh, that was just devastating.
And that's pretty brutal for Brian.
Nice off the top.
Yeah, I mean,
It happens, that's magic.
it could have been a Gideon, could have been a Jace.
Lots of stuff it could have been.
I think you'd rather it be a Squadron Hawk than a Gideon or a Jace.
Yeah, this is true, this is true.
Although, maybe not.
Okay, and down comes Mortar Pod.
Yeah, and Mortar Pod alongside those Squadron Hawks can really do some work. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen that in more lists now that I'm thinking about it.
I mean, like, that first mortar pot on the table means that the first Squadron Hawk of your opponent can't be equipped, the first one. And then your own Squadron Hawks means that subsequent ones can't be. And here we go, preordaining, looking for something tasty.
And,
Thinking.
ooh.
Does that have regenerate? Yes, it does. Okay.
I mean, Skitherix is card.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
You know, the first time I played against Skitherix, I just crushed my opponent. I'm like, oh, no big deal. We go to the second game, he cast Skitherix. I did not realize it had regenerate because it already felt good enough. You know? So he's like checking that card. What does that card do? Oh, it has regenerate.
yeah, I mean, it's scary how good that card can
Yeah.
be.
Other than,
Interested to see. It doesn't do well against a Baneslayer Angel, though. It's still a dragon.
well, you know, Baneslayer Angel normally for black wouldn't be that rough.
It's also not very good against Tumble Magnet.
Oh, Magnes, yeah. And another Hawk.
Yeah.
Go.
Interested to see how Brian can find a way out of this.
I mean, we're a long way from Josh actually being in a
Oh yeah, I mean,
commanding
Brian's still at
position.
20.
I mean, that
Josh
Skitherix
only has 2 points power on the table.
that Skitherix is only going to be held down for us a very short while. Until Josh gets something else that's a little bit more fierce out there, that Skitherix is still a problem, particularly now that Brian, if he wants to, can stay untapped so that a Day of Judgment won't take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, the big issue though is Co-op League closes very quickly.
Well, I mean,
and Josh
it
just
closes in a vacuum, but what does Josh have? He doesn't have anything to do the closing yet.
well, he just preordained last turn.
Yeah.
So
And that got him to the Tumble Magnet.
didn't,
Oh,
he
no, it
didn't-
got him to something. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
I
Yeah.
thought he had the Tumble Magnet.
And there's a Tumble Magnet of Kibler's.
No.
Wow, that Tumble Magnet means he can shut off.
Yeah. Shut off Josh's Tumble Magnet, but it may actually be advantageous for him to
Hold
really
it back
save the
for
counters. Yeah.
a feast of famine, feast or famine.
Yeah. Or a Baneslayer Angel.
I think I see a Contagion clasp in Kibler's hand.
That would be very good right now.
Representing Mana Leak by keeping that mana up.
And that makes it a lot harder for Josh to do something like cast a Baneslayer Angel or cast a Gideon.
Right. I mean,
Brian could have a lot of stuff here. Brian could have a Deprive.
Yep.
You know, he could have a Leak.
I mean,
And
again, he
Brian
could have.
hasn't really had a favorable opportunity to cast either of those spells, so
Yep.
from Josh, I'm thinking he definitely has though. None of this.
Josh comes in for 2.
Just gonna play some more Hawks. It looks like. Ooh, preordain. Looking for some more scary things. And I believe he found a sword. And well, Tumble Magnet will be good against. Oop, puts both on the bottom and he draws.
Yep.
Let's see what he found.
I mean, Josh is basically, I think, looking for a Planeswalker here.
Yeah, Planeswalker would
What did he
do
just
very
cast?
well. Stoneforge Mystic. That will
Oh,
also
that's
do him
pretty
very
good.
well. I mean, I think Josh at that point was looking for any card in his deck.
I'm less impressed by a Stoneforge Mystic in this game state than I would be by a Planeswalker.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he has a second copy of Sword of Feast and Famine, so even though his opponent has the Tumble Magnet, it makes things hard. Like, your Tumble Magnet really is working on the sword.
Well, here's the thing, right? Is that if I saw that correctly, and Brian Kibler has a Contagion clasp in his hand, his opponent just tapped down in order to get to this game state, and a Contagion clasp can mean that that Tumble Magnet never goes away. That
true.
it lasts forever. Wow. Wow. Taps the tumble.
Yep.
clasp a creature.
Clasp your Squadron Hawk.
Yep. Poison you to 6. What did Kibler say about 6 poison?
Yeah. We said that if his opponent's at 6 poison, and past the turn, that they're dead. They're actually dead.
Go. And that Tumble Magnet is still up to do some work.
And I mean, it's so rough.
And 4 turns, the clasp is going to kill Josh. Not yet. I should say 5 turns, because he can't activate the clasp yet. So if the game just stays still,
Yeah.
that clasp is going to kill him.
It's interesting how Clasp can be like an aggressive card.
And Gideon? Yep. Gideon is
Ooh, and
fine.
this is certainly going to draw a Deprive.
Oh,
yeah.
Deprive. And the crazy thing, he's got those 2 Hawks, but because, even with Tumble Magnet Hawk, he can't effectively attack with one of the Hawks.
Yep.
At the end of the turn, tap the Tumble Magnet.
Plays a land, and tumble away, my friend, tumble away.
Attack. He points to, oh, wow. Into the Royal.
Yep, and that'll
There
do
we
it.
go. Zing, zing.
Skitherix the Blight Dragon. Wow.
Oh, man.
Brian Stick's good.
I like it.
Like that looked really bad for him.
Oh, I like the deck a lot.
I wasn't really sure how he was going to, find a way out of that situation, and he just really engineered the board state. Like there was a Tumble Magnet play. There were, just tons of things. So right now we're going to do the giveaway for 3 months of premium. The hashtag is at SCG Premium. It's on the screen for you guys now, and the question I'm going to ask is, there is a 3-mana artifact that has kind of been the breakout card this weekend. Both of these players have it in their deck, and I'd like to know what that card is.
Interesting. 3-mana artifact, huh?
Yeah. I don't think that's big.
I think he's correct. Rashad says from the side that there are a couple of 3-mana artifacts that
There's only one 3-mana artifact in Kibler's deck.
yeah, are in. This is true. There's only one 3-mana
Yeah.
artifact
Fine,
in Kibler's deck.
I'd like to know the name of a 3-mana artifact that Brian Kibler is playing that is, in my opinion, the breakout card this weekend. It is the only 3-mana artifact in Brian Kibler's deck. And,
Josh Silvestri is also
been
playing
talking
it.
about it all day, so it's also in Josh Silvestri's deck.
Pretty much. Yeah, my previous version, I was like, man, I always lose to Gideon. And I'm like, okay, I'll just stop losing to Gideon.
Okay. From the sideboard, looking at Josh Silvestri's sideboard, he has 1 Mystifying Maze in the sideboard, which I think is actually going to be very effective. And 3 Oust, which might be able to be effective as a way to stall the Skitherix from being so potent. Baneslayer Angel is expensive, but maybe worth thinking about.
One iota about that, and now Tumble Magnet. That's the card.
But what are the cards he might not want in this matchup? What do you think?
Have you drafted this format much?
I mean, yeah.
Is Mortarpot all that exciting in this matchup?
Card.
I don't think so. I think it may be his way to beat Crusader, though.
Right.
And that has value in of itself.
So what does he cut? Because I mean, I like basically
There you go. Saves on
nearly every other card in here. I mean, Baneslayer has value by being able to fight a dragon, but because of the Tumble Magnets, Baneslayer might be just too expensive of a commitment to try to use.
Yeah, I mean, if I were Josh here, I would probably be taking out one Baneslayer Angel and bringing in one Mystifying Maze.
Mystifying Maze seems really great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind seeing. I mean, maybe Spreading Seas is useful just to make the Crusader come on the table a little bit later.
It's hard though. I mean,
Yeah.
so many of his lands are duels.
I mean, Kibler has
He only has 4 islands. so
20
you
or
really have to-
18 black sources.
Yeah.
He-
And I mean, he has preordains and things like that. So, like when you're slowing down the Crusader by a turn, you're like giving him more turns where he's leaving him in counter magic.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. What about Oust as an answer to Skithiryx?
I mean, I really don't like siding an Oust against Phyrexian Crusader.
Yeah, it might just be the one Mystifying Maze.
Sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. It's kind of
I wouldn't be upset. I mean, I would like to do more than that, but I mean, Mystifying Maze seems like a very powerful possible card from the board. Meanwhile, on the other side, we've got
another
a lot.
Jace.
Jace Beleren. Looks like they're just about to start. 2 Duress. And then the question of whether or not you want to have creature kill spells. I know that Kibler says that that's not the way to go, but maybe Into the Royal, which is one of the cards that we talked about earlier as a means to fight against opposing planeswalkers.
Yeah, it's also a good way to fight swords.
Yeah. Well, like Gideon and other planeswalkers are the real issue. If you have them expecting a Gideon's going to save them, and then you just bounce it, ouch. Okay, the classic turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic gets Sword of Feast and Famine.
Yeah, and Brian's going to preordain. He's going to look for a Duress or an Inquisition of Kozilek because he's going to want to take that sword away from Josh. Not quite clear if he's found one yet.
I wonder if Josh Silvestri researched out the Mortar Pod in Game 1 because he already had a Sword of Feast and Famine in hand, and he wanted to diversify.
Yep.
There we go. There's the discard spell. Duress. Takes Sword. We also see Jace the Mind Sculptor. We see a Preordain. 2 Preordains. A Gideon and
Spell Pierce.
Spell Pierce.
So he's got a pair of Planeswalkers, pair of Preordains, and a Spell Pierce. That's a pretty good spot to be in, but
Except
he's
for the
going to have to
land
hit some
issue.
lands.
Yeah, he's going to have to
Preordain's
use
gonna
those.
help.
That'll help, but he's going to have to make them go for lands. He can't
Yeah.
choose the good spell. It's going to be land sculpting time.
And he gets to see 4 cards right now.
Right off the top.
or he
Yeah.
or he doesn't even need to.
Might as well cast the Preordain this time, and looks like was that a Tumble Magnet maybe? I think.
And he may be kicking himself a little bit here that he played that land because maybe he would have wanted to play that Celestial Colonnade that he just drew. Now he might not be able to play the Jace next turn.
Well, if that's I think that land he put into play was a Seagram Coast, so he wouldn't have been able to do it either way.
Oh, that's true.
Second
Oh,
Preordain
yeah, it's not
looking
a Glacial
for
Fortress, you're right.
a Jace
The other one's
land.
the Glacial Fortress.
Puts them both on top.
Ooh.
That's
Interesting that Josh chose to pass the turn and let Brian potentially resolve a Jace.
there he is. Ouch. That even if you kill that Jace,
Yeah, and I mean
That's
he
so
can't really kill the
devastating.
next turn.
well, with
It's
his own
really
Jace
hard.
if he has the land for it,
Yeah,
that's just terrible.
yeah, it's really rough.
Oh, look at that. Not a man that is happy.
I mean, Brian's deck is showing us that it's definitely capable of competing.
Absolutely. And like we've been talking about, maybe that third Jace Beleren belongs main.
And I'm guessing this Jace is going +2 next turn.
And 2 mana gets the second Stoneforge Mystic.
She's probably going to find the other sword.
Yep. Where are you? One of you left in my deck. There it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. If he had access to an untap land there, he could have Stoneforge Mystic for the Motor Pod and then killed the Jace, if he still has the Motor Pod in his deck. Now, he has the Spell Pierce up, so could potentially, do some work. But at this point, I think Brian just wants to resolve a guy.
Inquisition of Kozilek. What do you got? he puts preemptively his Sword of Feast and Famine in the yard. Kibler does not disagree.
I'll agree with you.
And what does the Jace want to do?
Jace is probably going to tick up. It seems ill-advised to let your opponent cast his Jace. Now, I think it's interesting is
And they both draw, making Jace a 4.
and Josh isn't really
Actually, pardon me, making Jace a 3. My bad.
as far behind as it seems, though.
Preordain.
Well, it really depends on what Brian draws, though. If Brian, for example, plays a Necropede, then Josh is almost out of the game, which is funny. Necropede is the key card right now. Well, I mean, Josh, is still going to potentially cast a Gideon Jura next turn. And Gideon Jura is very good against Brian's deck.
Absolutely.
And Brian does have Mana Leak mana open.
There's the 5th mana. I mean, you don't want to wait and let that Jace do work.
Certainly don't.
Here they come.
Seems like what I'd expect. Stormwatch Mystic's coming at Jace. Gideon, Mana Leak.
Wow.
Ooh, wow.
Casts Jace into the Jace. Spell Pierce mana available.
I still think I'm gonna mana leak it though.
And
Brian
oddly
says,
enough-
show me the Spell Pierce.
Okay.
There it is.
Little chase down.
I mean, I don't know. I just for some reason I don't
In
think
for
it
2.
would be able to-
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 17 or 18, sorry.
Well, Josh still has Gideon.
Yep. And he passes to Kibler. Kibler has yet again an opportunity to do something about it. That can be a duress for the Gideon and a Jace. So then there's the sideboard. Is that a maze? I think.
That is a Mystifying Maze.
Yeah.
So.
And he takes the Gideon out, and I imagine that he might drop his own Jace then.
It seems like a reasonable course of action.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. And then he goes +2 on Jace.
Yeah. Which does mean that if Josh puts down the Mystifying Maze, I believe I see a Celestial Colonnade there, Josh can kill Jace straight up.
So, did Brian tick the Jace up? I don't know if I saw Josh draw an extra card.
I think he might have just wound it down.
So he's giving Josh an opportunity to resolve his own Jace here.
Well, maybe he didn't plus it at all. Maybe he just cast it and said go.
Huh.
Because then he can't kill the Jace without making Josh activate the... Okay, no, he did do the draw card, and here comes Jace of his own.
Yep.
Ouch.
Yeah. I'm really interested with Brian's course of action there.
Taking the Gideon instead of the Jace?
Well, just in general, the playing the Jace then after and not taking it up, just letting your opponent have that play. Now Phyrexian Crusader comes down,
Right,
and
which sadly is bounceable.
yeah, Josh has his one real answer to the Phyrexian Crusader in play right now.
Pro right, white.
White, pro red, first strike infect.
Josh is back down to 5 mana, back up to 6. Spins it down to bounce the Crusader. Activates, attacks for 6.
Yeah.
3-turn clock, down to 2 more turns for the kill.
And Brian's going to need to spend at least 1 turn here, killing a Jace.
Okay, the Creeping Tar Pit takes out Jace. Not much that Josh can do about that, but that does mean that Again, 2 attacks, and Brian is going to be dead unless something happens. Necropede? Ah, Contagion Clasp. Sadly for Brian, there are no poison counters yet on Josh.
And now, what's interesting is that, you know, alongside the Planeswalkers, Contagion Clasp is also quite a good spell.
So now this actually means he's bought himself in a full turn by clasping that that Mystic.
A preordain from Josh here. Josh just really wants like his power spells at this point.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised he chose to attack before casting that preordain. Might have wanted more options beforehand. At this point, he's got Brian on the ropes, and he wants to close.
Brian only has 2 cards left in his hand. Creeping Tar Pit as a potential attacker in play. Another Creeping Tar Pit casts Skiff. No, my bad. The Crusader that we've seen several times so far.
I assume Josh is going to get in here with his Colonnade again.
Yep, Colonnade will kill in 2 swings.
Yep. And Brian really needs a card like Tumble Magnet right now.
Yeah, a Tumble Magnet I think would actually make the game end.
Just about. Not necessarily. I mean, Josh could always draw Planeswalkers.
Or he could play his own Tumble Magnet to turn off the Tumble. Oh, wow, Inky. Wow, I didn't even see that Inky there.
Yeah, and with
means
that Inky, the Contagion
Clasp
class can really wind that thing down a bit.
This guy could be a Hawk. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good Hawk right now.
Does a good Hawk. Brian needs a Contagion Engine.
Did you say Contagion Engine?
Yeah. He had one last time. I don't think he does this time around.
Not in his board anymore. In with the Crusader. Crusader gets 2 poisons in on there. Meanwhile, it looks like Josh Silvestri might be one of the first players we've seen with Hawks that aren't marked in some way. Oh, wow. Another clasp.
And I mean, Josh is just completely refilled, so he has access to, you know, a lot of Hawks. But it's interesting here because Brian, you know, can just turn up that clasp.
Yeah.
And the clasp is essentially doing 2 to his opponent here.
Yep. Now Josh, what he's I think contemplating is whether he wants to activate his Colonnade and use that for, it'll be only 2 damage should he clasp, and then follow it up by casting more Hawks, or just cast Hawk, Hawk, Hawk.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
The one plan does 2 damage now and puts a clock of 2 on the table. So that'll actually be a 3-turn kill, and the other one is also a 3-turn kill.
Yeah, it's the same numbers.
But there's differences in what stage you're in at each point along the way.
Here he gets 3 points in, but spawn at 4, cast 1 Squadron Hawk.
And the other part is he
Still not
does have
quite
a
good
Mystifying Maze in play, and that Mystifying Maze can hold off that Crusader.
Yep.
Clasp knocks the Colonnade down to 2, kills off the Mystic, and knocks 1 extra poison onto Josh Silvestri.
No. I mean, those clasps do so much work in Brian's deck. The top of Brian's deck, though, really has to be kind. Josh really has him on the ropes, putting him at 4. Ooh, so Josh gets to play 2 Hawks.
Yep.
Goes to 5, 6.
Next turn, assuming that Kibler leaves mana open for a clasp, Josh can
safe
still get in
assumption.
for 3 damage. Oh, look at that. Ooh, 3 damage.
Ooh, I think... Does Brian have it? No, the Mystifying Mace. If it weren't for that mace, though, I think Brian might have it. 1, 2.
You were looking at the idea that if it wasn't for the maze, he'd be able to attack with the Crusader, not
2 turns in a
die.
row. Yeah.
I mean, if Brian Kibler has a land, he can start double clasping if it's an untapped land.
Does he only have 6 now, or does he have 7?
He's got. I thought he had 7. That's only 6. You're right.
Yeah, but you know, even with 7, he can activate the Tar Pit and block, and then activate a class, which changes things quite a bit.
Brian sporting Megan Holland sticker there, mtgmom.com.
I'm interested to see what Brian has for us here.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, he wouldn't slow roll us.
He wouldn't slow roll a tumble magnet, I don't think. Into the Royal.
Kick our main face. I like that play.
Wow.
So I want to draw the card on my main face.
Says go.
Pass
Holding
the
things down a little bit.
You're going to have a meltdown.
It does mean, however, by doing that play, that if Josh Silvestri activates the Colonnade, that he can knock Kibler down to 1 by an attack in the air. And then if he's at 1, he can follow it up with another Squadron Hawk, the one that just got bounced. Which would then put Kibler in a position where he literally needs 2 cards to get out. However, he just attacks with the 1 Squadron Hawk. Right now, it looks like they're talking about what the life totals are.
That's why I attack you.
Taking with the Squadron Hawk, Brian goes down to 3.
Yeah, I was confused. I was like, what? I don't know.
This game's looking a lot better for you than you think.
Apparently.
I mean, at this point, it looks really bad for Brian.
This is the thing. Yeah. Oh.
Yep.
What's he got? Mana Leak for something. Mana Leak to try to tap down Josh on the 2nd Hawk. 3rd Hawk for the...
Yeah, now, this may just be bait.
Being at 7.
Yeah, I mean, that's an out. You should have just gone with it, man.
Honest man.
So you get a payment?
Pays. Yeah.
Yeah, no, things will look a lot better now.
It's amazing right now. Brian has 6 mana, but he would just have loved to have had a couple more, I think. Preordain.
Didn't throw my giddy.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be casting, well, not even really sure what he's looking for at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Extra Contagion class? Does that get him there?
No, not quite. Still a little short.
It does strike me that Josh has kind of been playing around cards like Disfigure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Josh continues to play around a card like Disfigure, a class would be able to potentially make Silvestri play around him too much. You know what I mean? But let's see what we get.
Yeah.
There's
Interested
the
to see
7th land.
Tumble
Oh, I'm wrong. Tumble Magnet. Mana Leaked. And Brian picks it up.
Brian packs it in. Now, we're going on to a game 3 here. Brian gets to be on the play.
Yeah, big time. Big deal.
And as we've learned in Standard, in just about every single matchup, being on the play is absolutely huge.
Yep.
I still have 3 Squadron Hawks on the table and a Colonnade.
There are some decks that can operate well on the draw. They can go over the top well.
Right.
I had an extra.
Decks like Rug.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
Now, what happened in this game that was really interesting, like, just thinking about it, Kibler used discard to get rid of numerous numerous very powerful spells. He got rid of a Gideon. He got rid of 2 Swords of Feast and Famine. And basically what he was beaten down by, for the most part, was just a bunch of dorks.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Kibler didn't have the early Crusader, which is so important in this matchup.
Yeah.
No, it was actually 4. So.
I believe that the Celestial Colonnade got in for 4 once.
Yeah, if I was 7, I win for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what. That's where I was coming from. Like,
So, I mean, it basically just was kind of a little bit of poke here, poke there, was how that ended up playing out.
I'm interested to hear what Brian has to say about not taking up the Jace, also.
Yeah. I mean, it could just be that Gideon by itself on the board is just too hard to kill. You know, that, like, it would just be...
Well, I was wondering why he didn't take up the Jace.
Right here, forever.
Just ticking it up instead of taking it down.
Ticking up, yeah.
Never happened. So, yeah.
Which then forces Josh to activate his Colonnade to kill the Jace.
Sorry, on the end of
And then, by so doing, means that there's another turn where Jace, Mind Sculptor, is not on the board.
Yes. And I mean, the problem with Brian's deck is that it's weak to Planeswalkers, and
Right?
it's gonna take some hard work to figure out how to fix that problem.
I mean, I think the answer to that problem is something we've talked about, which is just get an extra Jace Beleriand in there and maybe have another one on the board. And then just suck up Gideon Jura, you know?
Can't disagree there. It seems valid.
I mean, the thing about a card like Gideon Jura, it can be mana leaked, and it has, you know, duress as a real issue for it.
Very close, very close.
I've never seen
Now,
a deck that's good. No.
One of these players will be going on to the top 4, which we will be covering tomorrow morning. The top 4 will probably have some Cawblade.
Right.
Maybe not, though. It'll definitely have Cawblade. There's one mirror.
All you Magic players who are still hanging out. Both
Four
of the
lands and 3
remaining
good
4
cards.
final matches
Except against your
are
deck, like
into
3
game
blanks.
3.
So,
When
yeah,
those
that's
conclude, we will be closing the hall promptly.
Looks like Jerry's match finished. I should have seen one there.
Wrap up your
Three.
trades and be ready to go. It should be
No,
no
no.
longer than 15 minutes or so before we close the hall, guys.
I had tumble magnitude 10 maybe.
So Jerry has won the first match, 2-1.
Oh, nice. So Jerry Thompson into the top 4.
How do they work? I don't know.
Pose that question on the internet. When someone asks how my deck beats
And Ricky Zhao won.
I've got Glenn saying it's still in progress. Ricky Zoe won. Okay, so Ricky Zoe playing blue-white Cawblade beat the mono-red.
Yeah, I believe he had Firewalkers in his sideboard. Then we have the Kibler Silvestri match still happening. And then we have the Valakut versus Blue White Cawblade match. And this is a very interesting Valakut. All right, and we're going up to game 3.
Looks like a mull from Josh Silvestri.
Oh.
Wow,
Ooh,
double
he's
mull.
going down to 5.
Not that I do anything with taking cards out of here.
And I think Brian's talking about how mulliganing with that deck isn't really that big of a deal.
He's like, I can just, kind of picture him. I mean, come on, all you need to do is draw 1 of 8 cards, and you're fine. No big
It's
deal.
true. You just get a refund. Yeah. You can just shuffle some away with your Jace, get him again. Yeah, that was a fast shuffle from Josh.
And let you play Jace and just legend rules. Like, gets me a bunch of time.
There you go. Now,
Okay, let's see what happens with 5 cards.
Josh goes down to 5, and so he has a Stoneforge Mystic. It's probably good enough.
So long as it resolves. Creeping Tar Pit, is that? And on the other side, we've got a Preordain.
Ooh, and I think Josh might be digging for a second land.
Yep. And Brian Kibler now has access to the potential for discard of all kinds. Preordain, which means he's shutting down the option for Mana Leak. At least for this turn, I mean.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that could give Josh an opening to,
Let's see.
resolve
And
Stoneforge
he
Mystic,
says
something
go,
like
so
that.
there is no Inquisition coming to do any work there. And Josh does not have the apparent comes into play untapped white.
Yeah, I mean, that Stoneforge Mystic would have been really huge there.
And here is a Celestial Colonnade.
Now, I mean, Josh is still in this game. Like, he's going to play a Stoneforge Mystic next turn.
A small
found
correction. Rookie Zoe won 2-0, not 2-1 on the previous other match that we didn't watch. Okay. Crusader.
The first cut is the deepest, man.
V Tumble Magnet. Good times. Duress. Duress has options for Mana Leak. Is that double Mana Leak?
Yep.
Preordain.
And a Preordain. It's interesting. He almost wished he didn't play it so that he could have nabbed the sword that Stoneforge got. Surprised Brian decided to knock it in with the ink. He may have another play, though.
Right.
If he plays another Crusader, it's really bad for his opponent.
And there goes the Preordain.
Yeah, he's probably going to, like...
Jace
yeah.
B.
That's...
Ouch. That Jace is going to continue unmolested for several turns at least.
Yeah. He's going to at least cancel off it. Perhaps more.
It looks like it comes into play untapped land, or sorry, tapped land is in Josh's hand. At least that's what his body language said to me. Let's see if I'm right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. More counting.
Yeah, he's...
Try again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really bad for him. Mulling to 5 is always rough. It's really rough to do that, like, in Game 3 of a rubber match.
Yeah.
You're in top 8.
He passes.
Josh is somebody who, a very good player, somebody who's pretty visible in the community, and, it's awesome to see him go so deep in this tournament. And, it's unfortunate that he had Mulling to 5 this game. Of course, he's by no means out of the game.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have Inkmouth Nexus activating. Declare the attack. Neither of them gets tapped by the Tumble Magnet. Poison to 3.
Yep.
Josh draws a card. Does that look like another Mana Leak? I think he just drew.
Yeah, those are not the cards he wants to be drawing
Yeah,
right now.
triple Mana Leak right now is not exciting. If that is indeed what he drew. Activate Inky.
Oh.
Tap.
Go
Down
to
to
4. Is it 4 poison?
Creeping Tarpa hits the table for Brian Kibler.
Now, poisoning people out. I don't know if you've ever done it in a high-level play, but it's really fun.
You know, I have to say, I have only done it in the, what's it called, sealed deck format and the draft format.
I mean, it's especially exciting when you get to do it in constructed.
We have. I don't understand. What do you mean doing that in constructed? Or not constructed,
Poisoning people.
In Time Spiral draft. How does that work?
Ooh, in Time Spiral draft? Oh, in Time Spiral constructed? There's the Virulent Sliver deck.
Rashad is smiling and so happy on the sidelines.
Yeah, I remember Frank Carson wrote an excellent article about that. Now on the
we
table,
got
Stoneforge
Feast and
comes down against the
Famine.
sword. We have...
It feels too little too late to me, honestly, just looking at this board state.
And the Magnet might just use the blast counter this turn.
Here's a 5th mana. Jace is spin, 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 and just... What's that 5th mana gonna do? Kibler is in turn counting, and we've got Activate Inky. Attack, you want to do something? I will use the last of my counters to tap your Crusader. 5
He's
poison.
5 poison. One short of.
Can I call you back in like
Kibler's
Like
magic
3
number.
minutes?
Yes.
It won't take that long.
Oh god, that's cold. That's so cold.
Now,
That's good.
I mean, it's possible for Josh to win this game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just really rough. And a player like Brian Kibler, he's really good.
Yeah.
And he's not going to play into these mana leaks. And, you know, when Josh taps out, when Josh, you know, finally decides that he has to tap out, Brian's just going to punish him.
Yep.
And leave these mana leaks stranded in his hand.
Josh attacks the Jace to finish it off. Land. Jace, the Mind Sculptor. Tapping
And,
pretty far down. Deprive.
And
Ooh,
that'll
wow,
be
there
it.
we go.
Yeah, and
Wow.
Brian Kibler goes into the top 4 of the Star City Games Standard Open here in LA.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that right now, 2 of our top 4 were probably, if you walked into the room at the beginning of the day, people